There's parts of this you can automate, but there's a lot of it that is region specific, kind of that tribal knowledge that you need to have somebody who has experience building, that's built before, that knows estimating to do it.
Put that coffee down.
Creators are leaders. Be careful what kind of leaders you're producing here.
Helen, we're both in sales. Let me tell you why I suck as a salesman.
They realized that to be in power, you didn't need guns or money or even numbers. You just needed the will to do what the other guy wouldn't.
I'm not leaving. The show goes on.
Well, hello there, friend. Welcome back to the Construction Leadership Podcast. I am your host, Bradley Hartman, and on this show, we bring you ideas and insights from leaders across the construction industry every single week to help you lead more effectively. This episode is brought to you by the Simple Sales Pipeline. If you are not forecasting your future sales with consistency and discipline and accuracy, you, my friend, are at the risk of flying blind into an uncertain future. So how do we solve this problem? Is it a multi-year process, spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to onboard a new CRM system that your salespeople aren't going to use? No, don't do that. What you should do is you should solve this problem in the next 30 minutes. That's right, the next 30 minutes by using the Simple Sales Pipeline. We built it just for the construction industry. Learn more at thesimplesalespipeline.com. Now, if you have been listening to the Construction Leadership Podcast for any length of time, inevitably you have heard me go on a deep digression or a very short, angry diatribe about a single activity, which I believe there's so much waste and overlap and redundancy in the construction industry, and that is takeoffs. That's right, takeoffs. I know takeoffs are important. Having built a lot in the field and then worked in purchasing for years, I've done them myself. And rolling out a 2x3 set of prints and knowing the details and pricing everything out and getting the quantities, I know how important that is. However, too many people believe that's where all the value is created. And specifically, I'm talking to sales professionals. However, I'm also talking about the purchasing folks and the estimating folks who will send out the same set of 5 prints to 5 different companies and have them do 5 different takeoffs. Obviously, there has to be a better way. So obviously, that is the definition of redundancy. And in an industry and in a world where time is so valuable, we need better thinking on takeoffs. And I can tell you this, there's a hell of a lot of people that in theory are trying, because every single week, I will get no less than 15 emails from some random person who claims they do takeoffs and estimating well, thinking because we are in the construction industry, we must be a constructor. We are not. So I ignore them all and I delete them, but I get more of those emails than just about anything, which is why I was excited to talk to Mr. Chase Hackner of Paradigm. Now, what does Paradigm do? Well, you can go to myparadigm.com and you can learn about all that they do. But they create software for the building industry. On their website, it says, Paradigm software solutions help organizations throughout the supply chain to boost sales, reduce costs, and become more competitive. They have solutions for contractors, distributors, lumberyards, retailers, remodelers, and manufacturers. Now, Chase Hackner, specifically, is the sales manager for Paradigm Estimate, and they specialize in executing detailed and, importantly, accurate takeoffs. Now, on behalf of our clients for the last, 4 years, we've been trying to find a consistent and reliable takeoff partner that would allow their team to do other things that truly add value and can help grow the business while somebody else is doing the takeoff at a lower per dollar per hour cost. But throughout our search to find a capable partner, I had 2 clients who had already solved this problem, and both of them had the same answer, and it was Paradigm. So now they were on my radar, and then shortly thereafter, in June of 2021, they were acquired by Builders FirstSource, which added a whole different dimension to this, which is exactly why I wanted to get with Chase on the show and talk about takeoffs in general, the acquisition of BFS, in anything else because this is such an important topic. So without further ado, please enjoy my conversation with Mr. Chase Hackner, sales manager of Paradigm Estimate. As always, thank you for listening. Mr. Chase Hackner, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Glad you made time here. This is what it would take. So I'm a Chicagoan, you're a Scotty, Wisconsinite. We have to go to Vegas to get together to talk shop. So let's do this. I want to start at the beginning. Take me back. Tell me where you were. You're 12 years old, 6th grade. Where were you geographically and what were you into? And what did you think you would be doing, if anything, circa 2023?
Yeah, that's a great question. I haven't thought about it in a long time. 6th grade, I was in Edgerton, Wisconsin, which is not too far from you, just south of Madison for those listening. But yeah, in Edgerton, Wisconsin, pretty much all I did was fish and think about when hunting season wasn't going on. That was pretty much my MO. And then I was playing sports in school too. What I wanted to do, I really didn't have any idea. If fishing was a career, I probably would have done that. But no, I didn't really have any idea what I wanted to do in that sense.
Got it. What about your parents? What did your parents do?
So my father was in the construction industry.
Okay.
He's been a project manager pretty much his whole career at different organizations, mostly in commercial construction.
In commercial side. Okay. All right. So you're there. Yeah. I'm going to hit on the fishing thing. So on your bio, you were good at sports, played football. What position did you play?
I was a middle linebacker.
Middle linebacker.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Those are the people that I tried to avoid as much as I could as a quarterback there. You were also on the fishing team. We'll come to that in a minute. What did you learn? Any sort of takeaways on the leadership side that you still think about or apply today that you learned on the gridiron, whether it's from coaches in high school or coaches at the college level?
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing I learned that stuck with me forever, and learned this in college, is essentially one simple phrase: find a way to win. And especially in sales, as you know, there's going to be a lot of different things that come up, and there's going to be a lot of things that are out of your control. And I think at the end of the day, you just got to be resourceful, and you just focus on, hey, what can I control? Let me think about it differently. Let me approach it differently. And yeah, it sounds a little cheesy, but at the end of the day, it's just finding a way to win.
Well, often that's like the refrain from leaders, which is, and especially in sales, which is a very results-oriented business, which is find a way. You either have the win or you have a story. In most cases, I don't really care about either one, but figure it out, find a way. Like, don't give up, right? Persistence is part of it. So no, that totally makes sense. So tell me about the transition to fishing. Mm-hmm. There's a fishing team at the University of Wisconsin lacrosse, by the way. Mascot?
Eagles. Go Eagles.
The Eagles. Mm-hmm. All right. Not the Fighting Eagles.
Just the Eagles.
Not the Green Eagles, just straight Eagles. Okay. So how'd you find your way to the fishing team?
Yeah, so it's a little bit of a long story. I love playing football. I've been doing it my whole life. And what actually ended up happening, I had a number of concussions across my career, right? So those are building up. And I was on my way to deer camp. This would have been my sophomore year, so after my sophomore season. And I got in a car accident where I kind of had a Bronco, nice, beautiful Bronco back in the day, Eddie Bauer edition. And what ended up happening is I rolled it, was perfectly fine, thank God. Other than the fact that I had a severe concussion, I had some severe vertigo, went through physical therapy and stuff like that. And at the end of it, the doctor kind of gave me a ultimatum of like, well, you can do whatever you want, but here's my official recommendation. And that's like, hey,
that's scary stuff.
You probably shouldn't play anymore. And that's where fishing came in. So I had to find something else to do, and I was already doing it. So we had a small team, and came in there and got to kind of bring that up to the roots. And it's a great time.
So how does the fishing thing work? I'm assuming you compete. There's not a real scoreboard. I'm sure there's a figurative scoreboard. How does this work?
Yeah. So actually, it is pretty competitive. It's really competitive. And really, the fishing team is a couple of things. Mainly, it's bass tournaments. So bass fishing, all across the country. The other side of it is just doing, local events. Hey, take a kid fishing.
Okay.
Just group get-togethers. Hey, we're going to go out on the river and things like that. But yeah, there is competitive fishing, and did a couple of events kind of across the country, competitively bass fishing. Okay.
All right. So you get out, you work as a laborer for Builder. Was that commercial or residential?
So that was commercial. And so that was, in college, and kind of ties into the fishing thing. I thought I was going to be a fisheries biologist. So I actually have a biology degree.
Did you say fisheries?
Yeah, fisheries biologist.
Got it. All right.
And so...
is that breeding and raising fish?
Yeah, studying fish, breeding them, raising them. I actually had a great internship with the USGS where, I raised and did all sorts of stuff.
Geographic Survey? What's that stand for?
United States Geological Survey.
Okay.
Hopefully,
I thought there was a survey in there somewhere. this is going to derail the entire podcast. We're not going to talk about takeoffs here at all. What did you do?
Yeah. So I raised all the native fish in Wisconsin, took care of them in these small aquariums so that we could study them against the invasive species in Asian carp, right? So if you're going to do chemicals on Asian carp in the Mississippi River, well, you got to know how's that going to affect the other fish. So it's my job to keep all those suckers alive so they could test on them.
The old 5th grade food chain comes to mind. Like you start messing around with the ecology there, bad things can happen.
Mm-hmm.
How many native fish are there in Wisconsin? You said all of them.
Yeah, that's a tough question. Probably a lot more than I'll say. I think it was like 30 different species, maybe 35, all sorts of different things.
I think we'll have Eric, the producer, ETP. I need you to check to see if this is the first time we've had a fisheries biology. What is it?
I was just a regular bachelor's of science in biology.
In biology with a focus on fisheries. All right, dude, let's dive in to takeoffs in general. I have spent a lot of my career, once I got out and started working in the field, started understanding that obviously there's 2 elements to this. The quote unquote plan quality. Do we trust the plans? Control what you can control. The other part is the takeoffs here. And I find myself, whether working with manufacturers or distributors or dealers, or even some of our GCs, even some of our Spanish-speaking clients, when it comes to this idea of a takeoff, my whole approach is the more time you spend working on the takeoff yourself, there's an opportunity cost that you could be doing something else. If I'm a salesperson, it is listening and understanding the larger problems they're having that are stopping them from being more profitable and limit rework or causing safety concerns. But so many people in our industry spend so many hours, redundant hours on takeoffs. It's a huge issue. And yet, obviously, if they're not accurate, we don't trust them. That's a whole other set of issues. So maybe just talk from a high level on kind of how you approach the takeoff, what I'll call the takeoff paradox, this idea, and how we can come in and say, listen, opportunity cost, here's what you could be doing. Here's where we can just kind of slide in this one niche to serve you better so you can run a better business. What does that look like from a high level?
Yeah, I think with takeoffs as a rep, the most important thing you can do, you got to know what's in there. You got to be able to talk to it. There's something that's going to be on there that your builder's going to bring up that's going to say, hey, and you got to know it, because if you don't, then you lose credibility. And so I think the paradox with the rep doing takeoffs is in some cases what happens is you limit yourself. You have a certain ceiling. Hey, if you're going to do them on your own, okay, but you can only do so many. You're only one person. There's only 24 hours in a day. And so typically on average, it might take someone 2 to 4 hours to do a takeoff, depending on the complexity of the project and how much they're quoting, if they're just doing sticks versus if they're doing, everything, the whole envelope. And so that might take up a whole Friday, a whole day of your week is all you're doing is takeoffs when you could be doing things like selling and things like that. And so with an in-house estimator, a service, anyone else who's taking that responsibility away from the rep, the idea is, hey, have someone else do it so you can focus on what you're hired for, right? Selling and managing relationships. And you and I could probably have a podcast of everything it takes to be a great rep, right?
Yeah.
And give that to someone else. You focus on, all that stuff. And when you get that takeoff back, you spend 15 to 30 minutes looking at it. And now your ceiling is, quadruple as high as it was if you're going to do those on yourself. And I think you're going to, that's a huge opportunity for the company to grow revenue and yourself as a rep to kind of grow yourself too.
Yeah. I kind of view it as a classic who, not how problem. You know how it needs to be done. It needs to be done well, ideally the first time, and you need to trust it. After that, it doesn't matter who did it. Now, it's your responsibility to know what's in there and to make sure you're educated and you've asked the questions. And I would always tell folks when I was in the purchasing department buying either material or labors, give me some ideas, give me some alternatives, show me some different ways you could do it, maybe a little more complex, but more, value architecturally. Maybe you can simplify it. Give me some other alternatives. And I know sometimes folks say, listen, just do exactly what's on the plans and let's keep this thing moving along, right? So how should listeners think of this? Because right now I have this is not even hyperbole, every single day in my either email or spam or LinkedIn, I get 2 general classifications of annoying emails that I instantly delete. One of them, the second place finisher, is as we are doing more on YouTube now, we have lots of folks from around the world, Asia, India, etc., reaching out to us saying, you have good content. You do not have many subscribers. I can help you. English isn't great, and I just kind of delete those en masse, and I say, I know, we're working on. The other part is I can help you estimate because they think because we're in construction that we are a construction firm. These are coming every single day. How do you guys differentiate to say, I know you're probably getting 100 of those emails every single week. We also do takeoffs. Here's how we're different. Here's why you should listen.
Yeah. And that is an incredibly tough thing to do. Because like you said, there's no shortage of probably everyone listening to this has in their inbox an email saying, takeoffs, we're great. Let's send them over. Let's get them done,
Yes.
and all those things. I think with us, almost every dealer is already working with Paradigm. When you think about how far stretched we are within the manufacturer space of windows and doors. So a lot of times it's, hey, you already know us. You know our quality. You know our service.
And this is through the configurators, correct?
This is through a configurator.
Yep.
So you think of, dealers ordering windows and doors. They're using our software to do that, right? And so they're familiar with us. They've been using it. We've been here for a long time. And that is usually a good segue of, hey, we enjoy ordering windows and doors through this service. Let's also, hey, we can also do estimates. We can do takeoffs, and we can start tying those two things together. And that usually breaks through that kind of noise of just another person. Hey, we're doing takeoffs, send them over.
Right. Yeah. So walk me through this. So you join in March of 19. You're there a little over 2 years. This has to be the number one objection or conversation you guys get. Very highly publicized. Builders First Source acquires you guys for cash. And all of a sudden, we have a lot of folks who are then saying, how does this affect me? Oh my gosh, Builders First Source largely. Let's just say they're competing in essentially every major metro market. Okay. So they're competing with everyone. How does this impact them? This is, I would think, the most common question you guys get. How do you handle that objection from a high level? Because I've had this conversation with several of my clients, some that were using you before, still use you now, and many of them who weren't using you before, but struggled with this and are using you guys now. And that's kind of how we met and we kind of came across each other. So how do you handle that from a high level, which is, well, I don't know. I compete with Builders First Source and they own you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's a great question. I'm glad you brought it up. And I think when you look at, when the acquisition happened, BFS has a mission to drive efficiencies in the home building market. And, that's kind of how things came about. And really the, part of that is Paradigm operates as a separate entity from BFS. And really what it has done is really invested heavily into our core products. So the manufacturer, retail, and dealer space, and has benefited our customers heavily. And we could not be more committed to kind of our core Paradigm customers. And part of that too is really important when you say how does that impact me? Paradigm is a separate entity, and there is absolutely no information being shared between the two businesses.
My guess is there's somebody who you work with who says, listen, I got my own P&L. I got to make sure we're profitable. I need to serve my customers, right? The other part that I was talking through this company they were very concerned, said, listen, these are your takeoffs. Now, if you're using Paradigm and you gave them all of your pricing, and then they did all your takeoffs, and then they communicated directly with your prospects and your customers, yeah, that would probably be a concern. These are just the takeoffs. And by the way, in your community on this very job, there's probably 3 other people that are doing your takeoffs. How efficiently can you get in and out and do those? So I certainly understand the concern. And by the way, I have no dog in this fight other than my clients who either are or not using Paradigm. But my point, like, for me, it was more of a non sequitur than something, hey, we really need to dig into this. And what are you going to do? Look at the fine print? What are we talking about?
Yeah, exactly. And I think part of it is, a lot of references and things like that help. You talk about, hey, customers that were used this before, customers that use this after. That right then, what they can say about it is going to be worth way more than anything, I'm going to be able to say about it.
Yeah. So talk to me about technology. We're here for the International Builders Show, and you walk around and lots of promises, lots of big dreams, robots and AI and all this sort of stuff. Talk to me about the role technology plays, kind of current state. I'm sure you guys have some secret sauce on this is how we do this, and I'm not going to reveal this. And quite frankly, we would bore each other even if you knew the algorithm on how you did all that. But to what degree is AI kind of baked into your current process today?
Yeah, it is baked into a number of different processes. And like you said, it's a little over my head too. But, it really has a big part to play in the automation of a lot of the initial parts of the takeoff, right? So, loading things into the system, calling out certain call outs, things like that, and highlighting that, basically teeing it up for our estimators to kind of take it and run with it. Kind of that automated redundant work that you'd have to do if you didn't have it.
Okay. Do you have any sense, do you guys talk internally at all, or at least any way that you can talk publicly about, is at some point there will be, now I know the big issue is there's no standardization, everything from bar napkins to, Revit to you name it, right? And BIM technologies bringing in all sorts of other factors. So there's lots of different ways. Do you have any sense of when AI will be able to, having learned from millions and millions of reps, has been able to teach itself to where, give it a plan, and maybe it's doing 50% or 60% or 70%. How should people in the audience even think about that?
Yeah. And really, that's a bigger question that probably we could really bring it back to how we first got here.
Okay.
And so when you think about Paradigm, been here for 20 years in the configuration space for the fenestration industry, and, have been doing it a long time, have pretty good market share. And that's kind of how Estimate came about is, hey, let's expand further along into our, customer base and into the construction industry with technology. And so initially the kind of the hope was we could probably bring in AI and automate, maybe, and really I don't know, but maybe 80% of that up front, right? Like takeoffs, it seems like that's possible, right? Like, and quickly into it, we quickly learned that, hey, like, there's parts of this you can automate, but there's a lot of it that is region specific, kind of that tribal knowledge that you need to have somebody who has experience building, that's built before, that knows estimating to do it. And so what we did is partnered with a small estimating firm in Wisconsin and kind of started to pilot that. Hey, how could we create the service marrying the two best things, technology and the wisdom to kind of, go ahead and create something that could make a difference in the industry. And that's kind of how Estimate got born.
Okay. So as you guys do that and having, I'm building in Lindenhurst and this is a little fiefdom, and the guy who's the chief inspector is a former architect and he's terrible to work with and he's all these little nuances and he needs them a very particular way. So when these takeoffs come out, I got to make sure we account for this and that. If I got a question, what are the different models that bring in, hey, who's the person on the other end who actually did this? And can I speak to them? Because I would have to imagine from customer service, building trust, having that relationship, that would be kind of a real pinch point when you're doing this at scale.
Yeah, totally. And that's the really hard part about you're outsourcing your takeoffs to, anybody. You got to be able to talk to somebody to figure out, right. You're getting something back and you're thinking, okay, how did they put this together? What's going on? You're going to have questions. And so we have region specific estimators that, hey, if you have a question on a job, you can type it into our portal where we log all our jobs and you can get, a quick answer if it's something simple, or you can call in and you'll get shot right to that estimator and they can serve it for you. And a lot of times too, in our implementation, we have these region specific estimating managers and we'll bring those guys into the implementation. We'll do a couple jobs for you. Let's meet, let's tweak them and get them adjusted. Do that next week and the couple weeks following and so on. So you're building a relationship with our lead estimators already. That way, when you call in, for whatever question, you already know who you're talking to.
Yep. All right, cool. Watching the time here, let's pull back a little bit and maybe kind of finish where we started here a little bit on some of the leadership principles from football. As you think of kind of a growing organization, you're building your teams, you're thinking about, again, how do we do this at scale? How do we marry technology with kind of old world craftsmanship of, I got a guy over there who's looking at this, who knows the local codes and name your local town, right? What are kind of the leadership principles you are thinking about kind of applying to kind of build your team in a way that someone says, hey, I know they're growing. I know you're doing more, but it still feels like you guys are still accurate. But as you're doing that, what are the leadership principles you guys are trying to apply within Paradigm to your own team?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, whether it's my team or any team in Paradigm, being a good person, that's number one. If you look at anyone in Paradigm, the great thing we do is hire great people. And it all starts there. And then I think that really translates to our customer base, right? We have, like you said, great lead times, competitive pricing, and great service. But what we really are good at is customer service, especially with takeoffs. That's all about trust. And when I think about, leadership characteristics are really what we value as a team, as a company, it's going to be two things, attitude and effort. You got to come with a positive attitude. We're going to go the extra mile for you. If you stick to those two things, everything else kind of falls in place.
Got it. Now, if either one of my two boys were listening, ages 15 and 11, which they're not, that's our mantra in the house. Attitude and effort.
Really?
You have a good attitude and you have good effort, the rest will probably take care of itself. So attitude and effort is our mantra. Have I put this on the back of t-shirts and then forced them to wear them around to lock that in? Yes. Yes, I have. But awesome. Well, cool, man. All right. I want to make it clear. Now, you guys are well known, but I do this to everybody. If you come on the show, I appreciate you making time and have enjoyed chatting with you. Where can people learn more about you? If they want to reach out to talk to you specifically, where can people learn more about Paradigm?
Yeah, myparadigm.com. Great place to start. Anywhere you're going to go on there, it's going to have information to reach out and you can put a request in. Email me directly too. Just chase.hackner@myparadigm.com. Either way.
Okay. We will, Eric, we'll link to those in the show notes. But hey, I know you're busy. I know you had a long day. I know we were parked way on the very, very end of the strip down here in Vegas, but appreciate you making time. Chase Hackner, thank you. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, appreciate you having me on here. Thank you.
All right then, friends, how did that go? Hopefully you enjoyed my conversation with Mr. Chase Hackner. If you wanted to find out more information, you can go to myparadigm.com. And if you did enjoy this episode, please rate and review the podcast. That means more to us than you know. Now, Chase and I met up in person when we were together at the International Builders Show in Las Vegas, and we video recorded this. So if you'd like to see that or share tidbits or see what it looked like in person, do not hesitate to go to YouTube and look up Bradley Hartman and Co., and you will see that content there. You will also see a whole host of other videos that we produce just for you. We want to share more ideas, share more insights to make you a better person, a better leader, and your company more profitable. So go there, check it out, subscribe. There's no reason not to subscribe. It's free. The giving never ends over here at the Construction Leadership Podcast. This episode is brought to you by the Simple Sales Pipeline. In 30 minutes or less, you can take a salesperson and accurately forecast their future sales. You can organize it. You can quantify it under 30 minutes. Do that now. Go to thesimpleSalesPipeline.com. As always, my friends, thank you for listening. I know your time and attention and energy and focus is a valuable resource. I appreciate you spending it here. Let us know if we can do anything to make this better. Better guests, better topics, other questions. You can send in something and we can anonymize it and use it for asking as a friend. We are here for you. You can email me directly. That's right in my email inbox. But as far as you know, I check often. Bradley@BradleyHartmanandCo.com. Again, Bradley@BradleyHartmanandCo.com. As always, thanks for listening. We're going to close out with our leadership mantra. You, my friend, are owed nothing. Deliver value first. Make it a great week.